Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and, hey, for the season, your streaming Santa of sci-fi, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your evangelist of the imagination, and the still as yet undefined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am coming at you, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, you imagination connoisseurs. This is Robservations episode number 822. I just want to remind all of you that you know that my latest project, Tango Shalom, a movie, lest we forget, that has been blessed by Pope Francis himself. That's right. Tango Shalom, that was blessed by Pope Francis. That's true, by the way. He did, in the Vatican newspaper. Is now streaming on Peacock. If you have Peacock, that's right. If you haven't watched it on Amazon, you can get it on Peacock now. And of course, John Campea asked me yesterday, he said, what exactly did you do in that movie? And I said, John, I produced it, I edited the film, I was the VFX supervisor, I was the post supervisor, and the voice of Moses. So check it out. It is truly an independent film, a labor of love. I hope you like it. And if you don't, tell me you did. Anyway, boy, what a difference a day makes. Now, first of all, what I'm about to say, I would like to explain something. I want us to put our fandom aside, what we like aside, what our opinions about content is, put it aside, and let's concentrate on business. It's kind of like when Richard Harris was talking to Maximus at the beginning of Gladiator. Let us talk now, you and I. There is a whisper of Rome. Whatever. I won't get into it, but remember, that's what we're doing. We're talking. So I want you to set aside all opinions, and let's just think about the business. It ain't show friends, it's show business. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Let's talk about the business of motion pictures right now. So, do you know what a successful franchise of films are? If you want to look at a truly successful franchise, Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. Started small, Batman Begins, did well, didn't break the bank, but even the first movie was successful based on how much the negative cost of the film was. Now, what is a negative cost? That's literally how much it cost to get a finished negative of the movie. How much did a movie cost to produce? Okay? Now, there are other costs associated with movies that people forget, such as studio overhead. Sometimes that's put in the budget. Sometimes there's creative accounting. There's also, obviously, marketing costs. There's all kinds of other costs associated with putting a film out. Conventional wisdom used to be that it was about 3 times the cost of a movie, whatever the budget was, it was 3 times that cost for a film to break even. So if a movie costs, say, $10 million, when it made $30 million, it broke even, because that would cover any other studio overhead, marketing costs, whatever. So anything beyond $30 million became profitable. In this modern age, the conventional wisdom bumped that up to 4 times what a movie cost to make, what the negative cost was, 4 times that. Now, here's the thing. Over the last 30 years, the costs of movies, since the halcyon days of Terminator 2, if people remember when James Cameron's Terminator 2 was made, it was the first $100 million movie. And people are like, oh my God, $100 million. And they made it very quickly, which added to the cost of the film. Now, we have films that cost 150, 200 million. In the case of Avatar: The Way of Water, a lot of money. Now, also, there are projections. Like, studios decide to greenlight a movie based on a lot of things. Certainly the talent, the material, first and foremost. But then they also have projections on how much a movie should make based on previous films, analytics they're using. So there is an expectation when studios make movies how much that movie is going to make. The Christopher Nolan Batman movies did very well and were very successful in relation to their cost, and the expectations the studio had were met. In the sense of Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, they even exceeded those expectations. That is a successful franchise. Now, when it comes to Zack Snyder's movies, I have been a big supporter of Man of Steel. I really liked Man of Steel. Man of Steel, I thought, was a great science fiction first contact take on the Superman mythos. Very much enjoyed it. Now, that's my opinion. But from a business standpoint, and in the climate that movie came out, the MCU, Avengers, had been on the upswing. Warner Brothers was expecting to get it. The reported budget of Superman or Man of Steel was $225 million. That means the film, using our metric, if it made 3 times what it cost, that's $675 million. That's to break even. They were expecting that a movie like Superman, that Man of Steel, they were expecting, now, rightly or wrongly, the studio was looking for more money than that. Now, I very much like Man of Steel, but I think that there is a reason Man of Steel did not make more money than it did. And I think we can all agree, as much as I love Zack Snyder's take on that film, the character of Superman, there is an expectation that the character of Superman has an element, we've been talking about this on the John Campea show, of joy. There is a reason why Richard Donner's Superman the movie was as successful as it was in 1978. You'll Believe a Man Can Fly. No one had ever seen a superhero movie like that. It came out a year after Star Wars. That film has joyful moments in it, playful moments. When Superman, there's the montage when Superman first makes his appearance known. He rescues Air Force One. He takes on, he arrests a cat burglar on the side of the building. He literally rescues a cat from a tree. And then when Lois Lane interviews him, there's the very flirtatious scene on the rooftop in an impossibly expensive apartment Lois Lane couldn't possibly afford. But the whole idea of what went on with Superman was it shifted tones. It started out as a great piece about Americana. The whole Smallville sequence was amazing. And then Pa Kent's death and Superman leaving the farm. I mean, this was peak Americana. And then, of course, you have the going to the Fortress of Solitude, then first going to Metropolis, and then the end, Lex Luthor. It's a film that has many different tones. But there is a buoyancy and a joy to that Superman movie that, unfortunately, was missing from Zack Snyder's version of Superman. Now, I'm not saying this is not a criticism of the movie. Zack Snyder made the movie he wanted to make, and he was more interested in more of the painterly Alex Ross quality, the gods of Olympus take on the Superman character, which I understand. The problem is that Superman is a character that appeals to both children and adults. It appeals to everyone. And the thing about Man of Steel was, I think anybody who has any amount of critical acumen would say that while we all like the movie, we want comic book material to be treated with a certain seriousness. There isn't a whole lot of fun in that movie. There is not a lot of joy in that film. And Batman v Superman, which I just watched the Ultimate version again, which I like the Ultimate version better than the theatrical cut, is also a very dour affair. And in the end of the movie, Superman, of course, dies. Zack Snyder's Justice League, I won't get into it. Justice League and all that. I was a big fan of eventually seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League version get made. Never thought it would happen. I was one of the first naysayers. One, there never was any close to finished cut of that movie, as we've now found out. The studio put $70 million into it to finish what was already there, and I really liked the results. But again, there's not a lot of joy in that film. And when I say joy, when I ask, it's very serious. And whether you love the Marvel take or not, if you look at the early beginnings of Marvel, there's a reason why Avengers made $1.5 billion. Because the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at its best, understands how to weave and thread that needle. It gives you joy and humor and also seriousness. Now, again, I am not making a judgment whether it's your cup of tea or not. I'm trying to explain to you from a business standpoint why those films made a lot of money. Why did the MCU work? Why for a while there, I don't know if this is true anymore, but for a while, for the entire Infinity Saga, if you break it down, on the average, if you average out the 23 movies of the Infinity Saga, they all made $1 billion. That's what I mean is, if you add up the box office of all 23 movies and divide it by 20, if you divide it by 23, you'll end up with $1 billion for each film, which is a stunning achievement by any metric. So what I'm saying is, and the studio, Warner Brothers, by putting Batman and Superman together, they expected $1 billion. They didn't get that for a variety of reasons. I would say that the reason that movie didn't make Batman v Superman, because they relied on a storyline like the death of Superman as opposed to looking at World's Finest. And for those of you who are comic book fans, you know the difference. World's Finest, when you put Superman and Batman and then the Trinity together and Wonder Woman, you could make a film that should, by all accounts, should make $1 billion. But in addition to be thrilling, it has to put a smile on your face. And I would say that one of the flaws of Zack Snyder's movies, and one of the reasons that they did not earn as much as were expected them, as much as the studio expected them to earn, is because they were rather dour affairs. And that's not a criticism. I think anybody who likes those movies, and I'm a fan of those movies, would say the same thing. You don't smile a lot watching those movies. I mean, it might be cool and badass. And look, not everyone likes heavy metal music, but I would say that I was the first person to talk about those movies are fucking metal, man. Which I still think is true. But not everyone wants to see a Molly Hatchet album cover with Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer. I mean, it's badass. But what you want is superhero movies to be 4-quadrant films. Something like Joker's different. And what I mean by 4-quadrant movies, that means the whole family can go. That's where you hit the sweet spot. A movie like Top Gun Maverick, whole family can go. That's what you want. That's where you get your $1 billion, or you get your almost $3 billion in this case of Avatar or Avengers Endgame. Now, Endgame was a pretty dire affair. The universe was ending, but it was also fun. On Your Left, Alan Silvestri's score, cheers in the theater. That's what comic book movies need in order to make the kind of money that the studio and, more importantly, their shareholders need. So I would say that as much as I have enjoyed a lot of the DC Universe films, they have never, since they created the DC Universe, Aquaman, by the way, has that joy. Again, not everyone's cup of tea. Might be a little too goofy. I like seeing adult creatures riding seahorses and sharks with armor on them. That's joyful. That's fun. That kicks ass. That's $1 billion. Now, again, I'm not making judgments on the films. I'm just looking at it from a business perspective. Why does Aquaman make $1 billion and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice with Wonder Woman 2 not make $1 billion? What's the difference there? You have to ask yourself why that is the case. So, and then Warner Brothers is literally down the street, depending on which building you go to. It's a couple of blocks away from Disney. I mean, literally, you can drive down Olive Avenue. You can go right past Warner Brothers, turn right on Alameda, go down to the Disney lot, and there it is. Why was Disney making more money than Warner Brothers? That's another question. And the problem is there was not anyone at Warner Brothers in a executive capacity that really understood or knew what was going on. Studio executives are not filmmakers. And in the sense that they all like to think they are, but they are not. They're not filmmakers. But what happens is they're also very reactionary. When they've hired a filmmaker that doesn't deliver what they expect that filmmaker to deliver, then they have to panic, especially when there's mergers coming or they need bonuses or whatever. So filmmakers like Zack Snyder and David Ayer got fucked by studio executives that, one, had unrealistic expectations over what they were doing, and then interfered in the making of those films. And the decisions that they made hampered. I mean, people would say that Suicide Squad made over $700 million, so it was a success. I would venture a guess that if David Ayer was if he was given free reign and he did his cut of Suicide Squad, it might have made more. I haven't seen it, but I would imagine it would have, because Suicide Squad, and I mean Suicide Squad, David Ayer's, not James Gunn's Suicide Squad, was one of the worst edited, most difficult to watch studio movies I've ever seen. It was really, that cut of the film I thought was garbage. It should have made more money. But the studio interfered. The studio balked because they didn't know. Again, they recognized that they were getting a darker kind of a film than they needed to get to make the money. So where does that leave us from a business standpoint? I'll tell you. You now, for the very first time over at Warner Brothers, you have a dedicated team of people. Peter Safran, who, remember, has already worked at Warner Brothers, shepherding not only movies like Shazam and Aquaman, but controlled all of the Conjuring franchise at Warner Brothers that was hugely successful. From Annabelle and Annabelle Creation to the Conjuring movies to The Nun, that whole pantheon of films made money. And it was a universe. And at the same time, Peter Safran produced Aquaman. Now he's got Aquaman Lost Kingdom, working with James Wan and James Gunn himself. You know, a lot of people, what people are asking me, and I've been getting a lot of this, is like, Rob, why does James Gunn, why do things have to make $1 billion? Remember, it's what James Gunn was able to do with something like Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy was an unknown quantity. The reason Guardians of the Galaxy worked the way it did and why it made that much money, I mean, you're looking at $750 million to $800 million. They didn't spend $200 million to make those movies. And they hired a guy like James Gunn to bring his own sensibility. And I would venture, let me point this out. James Gunn has been working in the industry for a long time. He worked for Lloyd Kaufman at Troma in New York 30 years ago. I worked with James Gunn on a film that he wrote. I was a producer on it, that he was actually in, called The Specials. That is a low-budget superhero movie that we made for $1 million with a great cast. Seek it out and find it. It's on Blu-ray. And James Gunn has a definitive sensibility to him. Whether you're watching Slither, whether you're watching Super, whether you're watching Dawn of the Dead, Scooby-Doo, movies he wrote for the studios, and then he made The Suicide Squad. Did it get a fair shake at the theaters? Not really. Day and date release. Still a visionary film in the sense that he made the movie he set out to make. Anyway, long story short, Peter Safran and James Gunn have made the correct decision. The version of the DC EU that has been allowed to exist for the last 10 years will end. I would imagine that The Flash and Aquaman will be the end. Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, will be the end of this iteration of DC films. By the way, this is the right decision. From a business standpoint, it is a right decision. Those films had their day. 10 years is not a bad run. Some of them were more successful than others. But unfortunately, what was the most successful of all of the movies that DC put out? Joker. $65 million spend outside of any continuity, a film unto itself, made $1 billion. $1 billion. That's what Warner Brothers, with its belt-tightening measures, is looking at. They want to cut down on costs. They want to make visionary, auteurist movies with their characters, but they want them to be 4-quadrant films. They have to have them be 4-quadrant movies. Now, here's the thing. You might get mad, but think about it. Zack Snyder's Justice League is one of the great triumphs of fandom. Fans willed that version into existence. It's a huge, epic win that'll probably will never happen again. And I would, you take that as the ultimate win that it is for fans. I mean, it truly was an incredible feat. And we should all pat ourselves on the back. And it's one hell of a 4K disc, I'll tell you that. And I really liked seeing what Zack Snyder did. And what has Zack Snyder done? Moved on. He's creating his own new franchise, Rebel Moon, whatever that is. Can't wait to see it. Support him there. Why have him look backward? Why have anybody look backward? Support his new efforts and take the win. I mean, we got Justice League, Zack Snyder's version. It got finished and made. Sure, would we have liked to have seen all that Justice League story he had to tell? Absolutely. But we're never going to see it. So here's the thing. What we have now is we have a brand new universe, not unlike, say, what happened after Crisis on Infinite Earths or any number of reboots. And you have two guys that are making a plan, a detailed plan. And between the two of them, they know everybody in Hollywood. Warner Brothers, David Zaslav, you have a studio. Warner Brothers has given James Gunn and Peter Safran the keys to the kingdom. And they have developed a plan that they're going to implement. They're already talking to some of the best filmmakers in the world. Now, let's talk about what's happened in the last couple of days, because I want to get some things off my chest. First of all, today on the John Campea show, things got a little testy, talking about Patty Jenkins. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the Patty Jenkins letter, she was responding to a lot of things in the press that went on about where Wonder Woman 3 was, which, by the way, none of those were official releases from the studio. Now, here's something I want everybody to understand. There are, at any time on planet Earth, with our, 8 billion people, there is a list of people that the studios want to direct their tentpole properties. That list of 8 billion people on the planet has maybe on the outside 20 people that the studios deem worthy of directing $150 to $200 million tentpole properties. 20 people, if that. I'd say actually 10. And the studios all want the same people to direct their tentpoles. Because when you have $200 million on the line, and you're giving it basically to one person to create magic, that's a huge risk. So if you are in that rarefied air, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It's not about gender. It's about director. That's what it's about. Now, when you are at that rarefied level, a studio is trusting you. You are a business partner. Make no mistake. It ain't show friends. It's show business. You are a business partner, rightly or wrongly, with a studio for forever, as long as you shall live, because you're representing that film. Movies don't just earn their box office. They continue to earn money, and they continue to be business concerns. So here's the thing. What studios don't want is they don't want their partners to go off, because they have to control their own narrative. Because it's not just the money for movies, it's the stock price. You mouth off. We've seen it recently with people can make the stocks of companies like AMC rise or fall with a meme. It's very important that when you are in business with a studio. Now, people have accused me, oh, Rob, you're such a studio shill. No. I'm speaking about any kind of a business. A business has to be free to control its own narrative. When a business, especially when your partner who's in charge of hundreds of millions of dollars, and Patty Jenkins has been in charge of 2, Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 84, she's been given a lot of money, that it really shouldn't matter whether people are talking in the press. Sure, everybody wants to defend themselves. But when you're the shepherd of a franchise like this, and in Patty Jenkins' case, 2, I understand she wanted to protect herself and she wanted to clear her name. But the thing is, there was no official release about any of this. It was all speculation, insider information. And she went, and I have no problem with someone defending themselves, but she talked about Warner Brothers business and Disney business. I don't think, unless, when you're working for the company and they're paying you and you're developing projects, it behooves you, it also behooves your company not to go out. I mean, there's a reason why studios are draconian, especially Disney, about even their actors going on talk shows and not spoiling things. You sign NDAs, all kinds of things. Maybe an NDA didn't cover Patty Jenkins. My only point was I thought going to defend herself, one, she opened herself up and the studio up to all manner of speculation that can actually become expensive for the studio. Depending on what she says, stock prices can rise and fall. Not a good look. I disagreed with what she did. Not because she was a woman, not because of Wonder Woman, but because she is a business partner of 2 studios. And she must protect the studio's interests. Does that make me a corporate guy? No. But if you want to do business with people, especially the business of entertainment, you have to be mindful of what you're doing. Now, this is different from the Disney Scarlett Johansson situation. Scarlett Johansson had a contract that Disney was not honoring. Now, this is actionable. This is very actionable. Disney went after their own business partner. That's why people like Brian Lord and CAA got behind Scarlett Johansson. It was abhorrent what they did to her. But this was Disney taking action they shouldn't have taken. When reporters are reporting stories and they're talking about their trusted sources, that is not a studio taking action. That is all hearsay, and you've got to learn to take your lumps. So that's all I wanted to say about Patty Jenkins. It was not a gender thing for me. It was a director thing and a business thing on the John Campea show. And the fact of the matter is, Wonder Woman 84, which she was in charge of, by any metric, let's call it incredibly disappointing. I personally hated that film. I loved Wonder Woman. I hated Wonder Woman 84. I don't even understand why that story was being told, to be honest. And, that was all on Patty Jenkins. Again, my opinion. Now, I'd like to read what Henry Cavill said. So for those of you who don't know, today, James Gunn revealed, let's look at what he said on Twitter. Here's what he said on Twitter today. Peter and I have a DC slate ready to go, which we couldn't be more over the moon about. We'll be able to share some exciting information about our first projects at the beginning of the new year. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages, our story will be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. But we just had a great meeting with Henry, and we're big fans, and we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future. Now he responded to a few comments. Being part of the slate, I assume it's a movie, meaning Superman. James Gunn responds, yes, it is a Superman movie. Please tell me it's not an origin movie. James Gunn says no way, because James Gunn is smart and knows you don't have to see that origin again. Could Ben Affleck direct? James Gunn says met with Ben yesterday precisely because he wants to direct, and we want him to direct. We just have to find the right project. In response to this, Henry Cavill released this statement. I've just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October, prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. After being told by the studio, they told him he could say. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember, Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and the examples he sets for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape has passed, but what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards. I'd say that's pretty classy. Now, Variety had more information about what went on. This is an article that was in Variety today. Variety reports, James Gunn has been at work on the new Superman story for some time, insiders say. James Gunn himself says he is writing the script. The script will focus on the character's life as a cub reporter in the fictional city of Metropolis. Audiences will encounter him meeting key characters like colleague Lois Lane. Insiders added. Additionally, Variety sources said the new Gunn project will not replace the previously announced J.J. Abrams, Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman concept film, which is still in active development. Quote unquote, the Black Superman, which is pretty cool that Michael B. Jordan might be playing Superman. There's a lot of ways they could go with that, but we still don't know anything about that other than it's now in active development, as it has been. Cavill isn't the only star from the last DC era to sit down with Gunn and Safran. Ben Affleck, who has played Batman in numerous films from the label, recently met with the pair to specifically discuss the prospect of directing an upcoming DC feature. Individuals familiar with those talks said, the Superman news comes after a week of headlines following Warner Brothers' decision not to move forward with the new Wonder Woman movie with director Patty Jenkins. On Tuesday, Jenkins tweeted a lengthy statement saying she was open to considering anything asked of me in regards to a potential third project, which was scrapped. Shortly after, Gunn responded with support, saying to Jenkins on Twitter, I can attest that all of Peter and my interactions with you were only pleasant and professional. What does all this mean? To me, I think it means great things. We are going to get a new from the ground up DCEU. Brand new actors playing the parts, a whole new approach, a whole different feel to the universe. A universe that for the very first time, like over at Marvel, has a plan that is being developed from the ground up by filmmakers and producers that have worked for the studio, and James Gunn himself has made 4, including the holiday special, Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and has consulted on the development of the cosmic aspects of the Marvel Universe. A man who's known Kevin Feige for a long time, and he's also a filmmaker world-class in his own right. He's currently writing the new Superman script. I've been saying that why wouldn't he direct it? I don't think that's been announced. I mean, it obviously hasn't been announced yet. Maybe no decision has been made because he's still trying to launch his new studio. So I understand that. Ben Affleck, I think, would be a great director for a new Superman movie. But again, they haven't said that's the case. James Gunn also said that we will find out what their plan is after the first of the year. I think it's pretty damn exciting myself. You're going to get hand-picked filmmakers, probably that are going to get opportunities to pitch their stories. And we're going to get things probably out of the box that we didn't know about. But what I find to be very exciting is that we are going to get a universe that is going to be built from the ground up with the idea that it is a full-on universe. And I think that's incredible. I think that's the way they should do it. I'm looking very forward to having this kind of stewardship. Now, here's the thing. Maybe you're not a fan of James Gunn's humor. Maybe you don't like his approach. Fair enough. I don't think there's any reason to believe that every single DC Universe movie is going to be like Peacemaker, the Suicide Squad, or Guardians of the Galaxy. And if they continue with Peacemaker Season 2, I know everyone's worried about, well, what continuity does it fall into? I mean, honestly, who cares? I think as of right now, they can continue to make Peacemaker movies in that continuity, or the Peacemaker series, in that continuity, and continue on. It doesn't have to be part of the DC universe. The Joker sequel, Folie à Deux, is not part of the DC universe. So far, we have heard that, there's talk, or I've read an article today that maybe Robert Pattinson's Batman is going to be in the DC universe. I don't think so. I think they're going to start from scratch, and everything else can still exist. They can still make those things. We all understand. We're smart people. But then there's going to be the DC Universe branded movies. I think that's what we're going to get. And I'm excited for it. I think that's a great thing. Great way to go. Now, before I continue on, there's a lot of people firing in super chats and tips. So let me go back and let's start catching up. First of all, Hitchcock is the GOAT sends in a tip and says, which is the lesser of evils, Wonder Woman 84 or Thor Love and Thunder? In other words, which pile of shit looks more like chocolate fudge? Ooh, I hated both of those movies. I was very surprised. I never truly hated a Marvel movie until Love and Thunder. And I just thought it went too far. But I would say that I'd have to say Wonder Woman 84 because the idea of wishes and all that magic, it didn't fit with the Wonder Woman we'd seen. I felt like it came out of left field. It felt like a 90s movie. So I would go with Wonder Woman 84. Adam Felbel says, hi, Rob. With Henry Cavill out, do you think this announcement will affect the box office of the remaining DCEU films, or are those films write-offs now? Not at all. I don't think that, look, a good movie is a good movie. Remember, and I implore all of you to remember this, most of the world is not looking at YouTube videos like this one that you're watching right now about superhero movies. They're not. Most movies are casual moviegoers. They go to see an entertaining film. They're not paying attention to any of this. If a Flash movie comes out, people know the Flash and people think it's good. No one's going to remember anything about Ezra Miller. Only we'll bring it up. But if it's a good movie, it gets good reviews, people are going to go and see it. Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, most people don't even know about the extended universe. The first Aquaman, barely touched. There's like a one mention. Steppenwolf gets mentioned like once or something. Nobody cares. Because what the general public wants, not normies, the general public, the normies are the majority. We're the freaks. God bless us. So, yeah, you got to remember that most people do not think much about movies from the time, unless they're in the theater watching them, and if they like them, they'll tell their friends. But for the most part, people don't take movies seriously. They're entertainments, the same way a roller coaster is an entertainment. So I don't think it will affect, certainly won't affect, think about it. If Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom kicks ass, I'm not going to not go. I'm going to go. If it's good, I want it to be good. I want Fury of the Gods to be good. I want Flash to be good. I want Aquaman to be good. I'm going to see them all. I'll tell you right now, they're getting my money. I mean, I like to go see every big budget fantasy film, and I go in wanting to like it. I want it to be great. You know, I have to say, when I was growing up, it was a golden age, the post-Star Wars, post-Superman the movie, 77, 78. For the most part, it wasn't until fairly recently that I developed a cynical attitude toward the output of Hollywood studios. I think it really became cynical. For me, it really changed with Star Trek 09, because they hired a director who, every chance he got, J.J. Abrams would say, I never liked Star Trek. I'm like, why the fuck are you directing it? They hired it not because he was good. They hired him not because he was necessarily a great fit for Star Trek, but he was the best fit they could get. And that's when I really started to become more disenfranchised from my own franchise. But what you want is you want great filmmakers to take on great properties, because you need that kind of passion to make something truly spectacular. And for the most part, up until fairly recently, I went into every movie thinking, fuck yeah, man, this is going to rule. And for the most part, there were, I up until over the last 15 years, I was mostly, I mean, look, I did not go into Shaquille O'Neal's Steel and think to myself, this movie's going to rule. I did not go see Pitoff's Catwoman thinking, I mean, hey, Sharon Stone's in it, so I figured, okay, Halle Berry, hubba, 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 coming off Swordfish, whatever, yeah. I didn't expect it to be very good. But what are you going to do? Trey Wessel says, do you think Gunn directs the new Superman movie? I always thought Jeff Nichols, Mud or Midnight Special, will be a fascinating choice for Superman. Could be. I mean, again, remember, the studio has to be comfortable with a filmmaker that has made a tentpole property before. I don't think you're going to see a new up-and-coming indie director taking on Superman. They're going to need somebody. I mean, I still look. If Gunn writes it and it's great, if he doesn't direct it himself, maybe get Spielberg. I mean, somebody like that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have a feeling. I mean, James Gunn's a lifelong geek. If he writes a great script, I think he'd probably want to direct it himself. You never know. I'd love to see a Chris McQuarrie come over, do Superman. But he'd want to write it himself, too. As a matter of fact, I think that's what James Gunn's going to do. Can you imagine that guy's Rolodex or his phone contacts who he could call up and be like, hey, once Mission Impossible's over, you and Tom Cruise, what are you doing? You want to do a Superman movie? I'm not saying they're going to do a Superman movie. He'd say no, but we want a younger Superman, obviously. But who knows what they're going to do? I think James Gunn's going to be able to get some great filmmakers to do some really surprising stuff. And I think we should be there for it. It's cool. Smell Then Sing says, happy holidays, Rob. What do you think about the DC film version of The Peter Principle starring James Gunn? I think, very funny, I think we should wait and see. I mean, why not give him the benefit of the doubt? Here you've got, James Gunn is like they say in Freaks, one of us, one of us. He's one of us. I mean, you know, the guy has given us the Guardians movies. If you haven't seen Slither, and even Super, which is a kind of fucked up movie, or, I wonder if you can see it. No, you can't see it. Find his novel, The Toy Collector. That's right. James Gunn's a novelist. Check out The Toy Collector. Read that. It's fucked up too. But he's one of us. And the guy's got the keys to the kingdom. So, I mean, it's not I'm not being a corporate shill, but I will say this. I've been on set with James Gunn on a movie he wrote that he was playing Minute Man. That Craig Mazin, who is a co-creator of the Last of Us TV series, directed. So why not hope these guys make something good? Wouldn't it be better if they made something cool? Say, man, you got a good superhero movie over there? No. Be a lot cooler if you did. I mean, so I'm pulling for him. Jermaine King says Richard Madden as Superman. I don't know. I'd like to see Richard Madden as James Bond. I don't know if he could be Superman. Maybe. But, you know, now that I guess he's dead. Icarus is dead, right? Why not? Cash says, what do you think the horror or social commentary could be for Scream 6? Writers are big fans of the franchise. Given the state of horror, where can they go? Well, good question, Cash. I mean, we did see today, we saw the new teaser trailer. I think it's interesting. Look, I think if they're going to get really dark, I mean, I think the first Scream, the very first original Scream, is actually a terrific horror film. And if they tie it in, I mean, what if, I mean, they kind of did this, they've done this before in various franchises, but what if there's a whole group of people online that want to gain attention to themselves and they decide to create a cult of ghost face killers and, you know, they decide to unleash themselves in New York. I mean, it could be really horrifying. And, yeah, although that might be too dark, but that's someplace where they could go. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. Mattuine says, ain't show business a biatch? If I was Feige, I'd have already called Henry. After all, his calendar just opened up, and Phase 5 or 6 could use a boost. Hey, man, Captain Britain. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, people love Henry Cavill, and why not? I mean, Chris Evans, how many superhero movies has he been in? What was he in? Was it The Losers? He was in The Losers, right? DC adaptation, Fantastic Four. I mean, Henry Cavill could play anybody, and I'm sure, why not? By all accounts, people really like him. And I really like him too. I think he's a great actor. Look, one of the most underrated, if you guys haven't seen The Man from U.N.C.L.E., where he played Napoleon Solo, I know, Army Hammer, whatever. Just watch the movie. Ilya Kuryakin, he played Ilya Kuryakin. It was good. I liked it. Terev says, would James Gunn be able to use his Brightburn movie, Sony film, in a DC reboot, multiverse-wise? Jackson Dunn is a younger Superman. No, he won't do that. And plus, copyright, and Brightburn is, after all, a Superman clone anyway, sort of. But no, he couldn't use that, nor do I think that he would want to. Brandon Martin asks, do you think we need more time before Warner reboots? Audiences might be tired by this time the new franchise starts by confusing continuities, false starts, mixed reviews, and bad press. No. No. Here's the thing. Audiences do not care about this stuff. We care. We fanboys and fangirls and fan people, we care. But the general audience doesn't care. They just go see a movie. So, and how many Batmans have we had? I mean, since 1989, you've had Michael Keaton as Batman. You've had Val Kilmer as Batman. You've had George Clooney as Batman. You've had Christian Bale as Batman. You've had Ben Affleck as Batman. And then all the Batmans on TV and in animated shows. Does anybody have a problem? No. Good movies are good movies. People will go see them. Now, what's going to be interesting is when people know that, I mean, hey, here's the new DC universe. We've planned a continuity out. Look, it's going to take a minimum of 2 years. Even if they start shooting a movie in March, we're not going to get it till 2025. So that's a long time. And by then, people move on. So I don't think so. I don't think it's a problem. Let's see. Cash says, Rob, on the Patty Jenkins situation, if her partnership is over with Warner Brothers, at least in regards to her involvement with this franchise, doesn't that change things? I don't necessarily think so. Again, if they want to hire Patty Jenkins, they'll hire Patty Jenkins. Frankly, I think it's a lot smarter if they go down and hire younger actors and reboot those franchises and start again. I mean, make everybody younger, and it gives them 10 years to do movies where you can do, if the characters are great, a trilogy of individual movies for the characters, and then crossover whatever teams they want to do, JLA movies, Titans movies, whatever. I mean, I have to say I'm enjoying Titans because Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem are on this season. But, yeah, they're going to start over, and they're going to have a plan, and they're going to make sure they do a great job. So I don't think it's going to be a problem at all, because most people, it's like, think about how many times nobody had a problem. Think about it. It was us, our community, fan community, bitching about Robert Pattinson as Batman. And look at how that worked out. Pretty damn good. And we were the ones complaining. Nobody else was complaining. My mom's like, how's that new Batman movie? If I'm like, oh, Mom, Twilight Boy. I mean, my mom doesn't know anything about that. She's just like, is a good movie good? Most people don't care. And I think that's something that we as film fans, genre fans, followers of science fiction, fantasy, horror, and superhero films, we have to remember that the rest of the world does not care about these things as much as we do. People just want to sit down and be entertained. Now, what I want is a cohesive universe. I want to see authorship behind these things. I don't want to see, look, the one thing, James Gunn is a punk at heart. I'll tell you one thing that we're not going to get from James Gunn. We're not going to get, I'm hoping, movies that lean into identity politics. He's going to go back to classical storytelling. He's going to go back to characters that are a little bit irreverent, a lot of fun, not so politically correct. I think that's where we're going to see a lot more of that, which I think is great. And I'm sure we're going to see, remember, here's another thing that they tend to forget. Movies like this are being made for the planet Earth. They're not just being made for the United States. So we have to be mindful of the fact that a studio, in order to make $1 billion, a movie like this has to play around the world. So a lot of the time, I think our concerns here in America, which have gotten a little out of control, don't always travel well. And for a studio, these studios are making money for the entire planet. And I think we have to be mindful of that. And I think Warner Brothers is very much mindful of that. And so is David Zaslav. Because unfortunately, as I have always said, great characters and a great story. Never put your universe before your great story and your great characters. And certainly never put your political agenda before your great characters and your great story. You will lose every time. Great characters and a great story. That is the key to a great franchise. Start your universe first. You'll lose. Put your identity politics or whatever politics you have first. You will lose. Give us great characters that are true to themselves and great stories that those characters can inhabit. That's a very simple formula, but these days people seem to forget it. And that's the Burnett axiom. Never put your universe before your characters and your story. Never put your political agenda before your characters and your story. By the way, whatever story you're trying to tell, the point you're trying to make, should be baked into your story. And it shouldn't necessarily be overt, because we're smart viewers. We can glean what you're serving. Make the characters and the stories work. And I think James Gunn will do that. BK Dan says, "Evening, Rob. Do you think that with lockdowns going on in China and with Avatar 2 going there, that this is a dud movie?" Too early to say. It's crazy what's going on in China, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a big country, a big country. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm very curious to see how it. I'm going to see tomorrow. Tomorrow at this time, I'll be halfway through Avatar 2 in the theater. Looking very forward to going to see that. So it's going to be interesting, BK Dan, to see where that's going to go. Josh Becker says, "Why did I see Black Adam? Laugh out loud. Seems pointless now." But here's the thing, Josh. Why? Black Adam is a movie unto itself. Did you enjoy that film? I loved seeing the Justice Society. Why is it pointless? It's a 2-hour movie. You know, there used to be a time 20 years ago where one movie didn't rely on anything else. You'd see the movie and you'd enjoy it. It still is a story unto itself. The story of Black Adam. I would imagine, I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to show up in Fury of the Gods. But why can't you just enjoy it for its own sake? I mean, I thought Black Adam was not great, but I had fun watching it. But why? And for me, that's all I can ever expect from a film. RRTNZ says, "Hail Bob. Dumping Cavill is risky as he had a lot of fan goodwill. Gunn must deliver a Superman film with wide appeal to fans and the general audience or perish." Oh, here's the thing, guys, girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, to use my Superman reference. Don't think that I think for a minute that they have an easy task ahead of them. They have a Herculean task, a task that is going to be monumentally difficult, a task that I don't envy. I'm glad I'm not in the position of James Gunn or Peter Safran, because whatever they're being paid, it's not enough. They're out on a limb, man. They're Roadrunner, they're Wile E. Coyote, and Roadrunner is standing over there before Wile E. Coyote realizes that he's in midair and falls to his death. That's basically where they're at. We are Wile E. Coyote. We're standing there with our arms folded going, "Hey, what do you guys got? What do you got?" We're going to see. We're going to find out. But, man, they're going to have to knock it out of the park. But the thing is, I think they can. You know why? because they know best. They don't have to put up with a bunch of Ivy League educated business people that didn't study, say, I don't know, the days of someone like Lisa Henson being a senior vice president at Warner Brothers 30 years ago who studied comparative mythology at Yale. We don't have anybody like that anymore working at the major studios. As a matter of fact, people at the major studios, a lot of them, there are good executives that do know stories. But for the most part, it's interesting that the people that greenlight which movies are going to get made, they don't themselves work from the gut. It's all analytics. So we have to look at this. What's the marketing here? It's too bad. MFHC says, I want Gunn to fail. Is total baby loser stuff. Yeah, I don't understand that at all. Hey, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. Henry Cavill's a great guy, but look, man, revel in the fact that we got Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And by the way, while I don't think that take is for everyone, I love that trilogy. I call it the Man of Steel trilogy or call it the Justice League trilogy, but to me, it's the Superman trilogy. It's a different, I think it stands as a testament. I look at Zack Snyder's Superman movies as how the Man of Steel is forged into Superman. By the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, that's when it's too bad that we didn't get Henry Cavill. I would love to have seen one more Cavill Superman movie that would have ended this iteration. Henry Cavill stars in Superman, and that would be, you go out on that. But they're going to open on that too, so I can understand why they didn't do it. But why wouldn't you go see this? I've never understood this. So you're telling me that corporate machinations have got you so down that you say that you're not going to go see something that's good? Look, I hate modern Star Trek. I have hated what they've done with the Star Trek franchise since 2009. That said, I can recognize there's a lot of good happening over at Star Trek Prodigy. And the Terry Matalas run Star Trek Picard Season 3 is a return to form. I as much as I hate modern Star Trek, I still watch it all. Hope springs eternal. Maybe this will be good. I hate not liking Star Trek. But if someone's putting out something that actually turns out to be good, and you're like, whoa, what a pleasant surprise. You can't just write something off. And besides, a corporation doesn't care whether you watch it or not. They care if the masses go, but they don't care whether you go. Why give them power over you? Just watch what they have. And if you don't like it, then go make YouTube videos and talk about how much you hate it. But it's silly to sit there and go, I'm not going to watch anything that James Gunn's doing. James Gunn's one of us. I mean, for the most part, the fact that Kevin Feige's over at Marvel, and he's a big geek, and he loves Star Trek, and now you've got James Gunn and Peter Safran at DC, at Warner Brothers, they're us. I'm on Team Gunn. I really like James Gunn. Whenever I had interacted with him, he was nothing but nice and smart and funny, and I respect him as a novelist and a storyteller. I hope they do great. Why would anybody want anyone to fail? I never want anyone to fail. There's too much failure in the world already. So I'm with you, MFHC. Support people. If you're going to create something, support them. If they fuck up, then fuck you. That's right. Fuck you guys. You did something shitty. You had everything you needed. See, this is another thing. Peter Safran and James Gunn have everything they could possibly want. So they better not fuck up. Because if they do, that's crash and burn math. Yeah. That doesn't... Wow. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the pressure? The pressure. They've got everything they need. Don't fuck up. Comic-Con Scott says, what a kick in the nuts to Henry Cavill and Dwayne Johnson, who demanded Henry's return from Warner Brothers. Reboot the DCU, but not at the expense of the best Superman that was never given his due. Well, Comic-Con Scott, in a perfect world, I would agree with you. But that's not how business works. And the fact is, I like Dwayne Johnson, but you know what? Black Adam should have been a better movie. If Black Adam had made a lot more money, if it was a better film, that script was terrible. That kid, not good. That movie was not what it should have been. And that is on Dwayne Johnson because they had a lot of time to develop that script. And I think that that's on them, man. But kudos to Dwayne Johnson for sticking up for Henry Cavill and getting him back for that great moment. Unfortunately, you can't, as much as I might like Dwayne Johnson, as I love his persona, I love what he does with the fans. The fact is, the movie it doesn't matter. All that matters in Hollywood is success. And the only marker of success in Hollywood, remember, as much as we love movies, they're a product, it's a widget. A movie is a widget. It's like a car, or it's literally like a widget. You might as well fill up a Home Depot with a bunch of movies. That's all they are. They're a consumer product to be sold. Now, there has to be art involved. Sure, of course. And we love cinema. I mean, I've loved cinema my whole life. Cinema was the greatest storytelling medium in the history of human history. I think games will eventually surpass it. But cinema was the art form of the 20th century. Black Adam should have been a better movie. So, lest we forget, it should have been a better movie. And they should have done a better job promoting it. Dwayne Johnson did everything he could. But the fact is, if that movie had made $800 million, we might have been having a different conversation. But it didn't. So, there you go. Darren LMN, or from Minnesota, Darren asks, thoughts on a period Superman movie set in 1938? Excuse me. It could be cool. I just don't think that would fly with a modern audience. I'd love it. I love the Fleischer Superman cartoons. A period Superman movie could be very, very cool. I just don't think that they would ever do that. Unfortunately. Although I think it'd be great. But I don't think they would make a movie like that. Or maybe they would, as they move further into, maybe they'll do Elseworld stories or whatever. But I'd think it was cool. I don't think general audiences would think it's cool. Colin C says, with Cavill out, do you think The Rock and Black Adam aren't far behind? Yeah, they're gone. Every iteration of where the DC universe is, I think the smart move, the smart move is end it. I think Aquaman is going to be the end of this iteration of DC. I think the only things that are going to remain, you have Joker, which is unto itself, and the Pattinson Batman. Although the Robert Pattinson Batman also did not make as much money as I think they hoped. I think there is a distinct possibility that I don't think they're going to fold the Pattinson Batman into a new DC universe. Now, this is just me, but I think there's a very real possibility that we will not see another Pattinson Batman movie. Possibility. I don't know that for a fact. Maybe with the Penguin series that's being made, they will continue on and make those Batman movies in their own pocket universe. That could happen. Or it might not. I don't know. But I will say this, it would not surprise me to not see another Matt Reeves Batman movie in that current iteration. Sorry, I keep coughing. I apologize. Michael Preston says, hi, Rob, do you think any contracts were signed for Cavill? And do you think Warner Brothers will give him work in the future? Does Warner Brothers owe Cavill some cheddar? I don't think so. Because there was nothing to sign him to. There was no script. People said that there was a Man of Steel 2 that was script that was rejected. Here's the thing you have to understand about movies. Every movie that is made is a business unto itself. They literally start an LLC or some kind of a financial mechanism to make the movie under. So every movie is its own business. And then when it's done, the studio will buy it back. So the thing is, if Henry Cavill, if he was signed to a deal, we would have heard it. It would have been reported in the trades. But there was nothing to sign him to. Like he did the cameo with on the If Come, that there's the promise that they're going to make Superman movies. But remember, I mean, things change, and there's in the business. But I don't think they owe him money. Make no mistake, they paid him for his appearance. And they probably paid him less than they had to because there was the promise of a new movie. But there isn't going to be a new movie, but there was no contract signed. I don't think so. But maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that there is. So I don't think they owe him any money other than, residuals from his appearance. BK Dan says, I just saw your movie on Peacock. I'm not Jewish, and I loved it. Well, BK Dan, thank you. That's, of course, the film Tango Shalom that I produced and edited. It's now on Peacock. You can watch it. Yeah, you don't have to be. I mean, look, Tango Shalom is a throwback comedy to a different age. My mom and grandmother would have loved it. It was done for a very low budget. It was done out of love. And the humor, it's very old-fashioned. It's more along the lines of My Big Fat Greek Wedding. In fact, my fellow producer, Joel Zwick, directed My Big Fat Greek Wedding. So Tango Shalom is on Peacock now. You can watch it. And I like to call it an indie spiritual quest family dance comedy fable. There's not a swear word in it. There's no sex in it. It did get rated. It's so funny. It got rated PG-13. Don't know why. But it's a goofy comedy you can watch with your folks and your grandfolks. So there you go. I'm glad you watched it. Thanks for watching it, BK Dan. I appreciate it. And I think anybody that's had a crazy dream that they've wanted to achieve will like it. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate that. Check it out. I could not sit here and mouth off to you guys about the industry if I wasn't myself working somehow in the industry. You can also go watch other work I had that came out this year. If you watch the Netflix animated series Dota, Dragon's Blood, it ran 3 seasons. I edited the animatics for all 24 episodes. So check that out. That's something else. Let's see. Wait, I gotta go back. Wow, there's a lot of you here. Let's see. Ben Davis says, what would you say to Austin Butler as Superman? Hey, I think Austin Butler is incredibly talented. Loved him as Elvis. Loved him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's a great actor. I don't know if he would be great as Superman. I could definitely see him as a character in the DC universe, though. I don't know if Superman or Batman, but somebody. But I don't know who that would be. I like him. I like him as a performer. Cyan Aguirre became a member of the channel. Well, thank you. As you know, anybody who's a member of the channel, who joins up as a member of this channel, we do have member chats every bi-weekly, every other Saturday. So this Saturday we have one. Usually they're at 11 o'clock. They run for a number of hours. So it's just you and me and whoever wants to come and chit-chat, hang out. Let's see. Sedge77 said DC needed to reboot 5 years ago. This is great. I'm with you 100%. 100%. I think this is a great opportunity for DC. And look at it this way. For me, you've got two guys in Peter Safran and James Gunn. I mean, James Gunn is one of us. He's a guy that has been given... I mean, remember, James Gunn made Slither and Super. Those 2 films were about $3 million each. And then Kevin Feige taps him to make Guardians of the Galaxy? I mean, that's winning the fucking lottery. And look what he gave us. He made Guardians of the Galaxy within the confines of the Marvel Universe. See, the thing that people don't understand is that I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a great... There's a synergy between the studio and the filmmaker. And the studio needs the filmmaker, maybe not as much as the filmmaker thinks they do. But if you have a point of view and you are a James Gunn, there's a lot of leeway to do some great stuff. Because, look, I don't think any other filmmaker would have made those Guardians movies the way James Gunn would have. just like I don't think any other filmmaker would have made Ragnarok and Thor: Love and Thunder. I think in a certain way, though, the studio, I think Thor: Love and Thunder is too much Taika Waititi, not enough Marvel. I think Thor: Love and Thunder could have been a terrific film, but it was approached, I think, as a comedy, and the bro Thor, the aesthetic, the thing about Love and Thunder that really bothers me is there's so much profundity in that movie. There's so much amazing stuff going on, but it's it's filled with such goofy stuff that it's hard to. I couldn't get into that film. I'm like, that battle scene at the beginning with the Guardians, and then Thor is trying to protect that glass citadel, and at the end, after the fight is won, the citadel comes crashing down. That means, what, is Thor stupid? He doesn't realize that the very thing he's trying to protect is the way of life for these people. They have to turn it into a joke when it literally comes crashing down. So anyway, I think that that's a great. It's great, like you said, that they're starting from scratch. I think it's a good thing. I do. But the tone is going to be important. What is the tone of the DC EU? And I think what's really interesting about the MCU is, to me, Winter Soldier is a perfect, serious Captain America movie. Stakes are high, but it still has, like, the scene in the elevator. You know, even though there's peril there, and Captain America is about to fight all these Hydra agents in that elevator, there's still joy about it. Like, we know he's going to kick ass, man. He's going to kick ass. That's what Zack Snyder's Superman stuff needed more of. It needed more joy. It needed more fun. But then again, it wouldn't have been Zack Snyder's movie if they did that. And that's the thing. I love his approach. It's just that his approach, I mean, basically, his Superman movies were like dark indie films. They didn't feel like big studio movies, even though Batman and Superman were in them. And I think, you know, whether you like his approach or not, I liked his approach, but they weren't as successful as the studio wanted them to be. Junior Hulk says, "Hey, Rob, who do you think would be a great villain for the new DC Superman?" That's a tough call. I mean, for me, I worked on Superman Returns, and I would go. There's different ways to. I had pitched an idea to Bryan Singer about what I would do as a sequel to Superman Returns, and it had to do with, in a nutshell, Brainiac takes the guise of a false Kryptonian, a false prophet, comes to Earth and presents himself as a Kryptonian, but is also a savior, uses Kryptonian technology and tries to alter the world for the better, and at the same time is discrediting Superman while he does it, because the people of Earth are like, well, why didn't you help us out? And it goes from there. And what happens when a savior is confronted by a false prophet, and the false prophet is able to win the hearts and minds of the flock? That's basically what happens, and it leads to an incredible confrontation. But it also played on the idea of what happens when a savior is discredited, even though the savior is still the savior, and the person doing the discrediting has evil intentions. So that's what my thing. I think Brainiac's good. I mean, I don't know if you could bring in another like magic you can't do, but it would be something along those lines. I mean, I like Brainiac as a villain. I mean, maybe Metallo. The problem, it's a real problem. Like, I think what they're going to do is they're going to build up to that. I really like the idea of seeing one of my favorite Superman stories, and I've said this before on this channel. I don't know which issue this is, but the idea that Clark Kent, the Clark Kent guys, Kal-El, and then there's Clark. Clark wants to be a good reporter. He likes being a reporter. So Clark Kent likes being a reporter. He wants to be a good reporter. In this comic, there's something that he wants to go cover in Europe. But the thing is, as Superman, he can just fly to Europe and do it, but he has to have it sanctioned by the planet. So he goes to Perry White and he says, look, I really want to cover this story in Europe. Please let me go. Because he's interested in human affairs and all that. So Perry White basically says, all right, look, you need to cover 3 lame stories for me today. Like one is a mall opening, one's some baseball game. And if you cover all 3 stories and have them on my desk by 7 o'clock tonight, you can go cover this story in Europe. So Clark's like, great, no problem. And then when he goes out to do it, then like the toy man attacks Metropolis. So he can't cover any of the stories. He's busy saving the city all day long. So when 7 o'clock rolls around, he hasn't covered the stories and he doesn't turn them in. And then it turns out that Lois knew what was going on, and Lois went and covered these events while Superman saved the city. Lois submitted the stories under Clark's byline. Perry White's happy, and Clark gets the gig. That kind of a story thing, I'm thinking that's the way to open a Superman movie, where it's like a 20-minute sequence where you're in Metropolis. You see, as James Gunn said, a young cub reporter, Clark Kent, full of vim and vigor, going to cover these stories. And then, of course, Superman has to save the city all day long. One from the toy man and a giant robot, one from some other villains and something else. And I mean, and that immediately, that's fun. That's the kind of Superman fun stuff. And Lois is like, of course, you can't do the Lois thing because Lois doesn't know who Clark is yet. But something along those lines. You got to make a Superman movie fun, but at the same time, delve into what does it mean to be Clark Kent and what does it mean to be Superman. And they've never really delved into the fact, like, I don't know if you watched the George Reeves Superman show from the 50s, The Adventures of Superman. He was a badass. I mean, as Clark and as Superman. Like, he would scoop all the reporters. He didn't give a shit because he was badass. And he was having a good time. They got to do more of that where you delve more into, and this is what's fun when the Superman persona and the Clark persona dovetail, and how do you keep one straight. And we saw a lot of that with the Christopher Reeve, at least in Superman, the movie, and Superman 2. Dr. J, $20 super chat. Thanks, man. Bobster, if James Gunn's Superman movie makes Black Adam money due to Cavill backlash and the Black Superman movie makes Black Panther money, what happens then? Well, so, okay, if the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Superman movie that J.J. Abrams is producing makes a ton of money, they're still going to be covering it under the auspices of what they're doing. Here's the thing. I think that if they do that J.J. Abrams, Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman movie, that might be a one-off too. Although, what is it, Val Zod? Maybe they'll put it in continuity. Maybe they'll figure out a way to work it in, especially if you got Michael B. Jordan playing that character. That could be pretty cool, depending on how it's approached. But I think, look, make no mistake, James Gunn and Peter Safran have to come out guns blazing. I mean, they've got the weight of the studio behind them. They can't fuck up. They can't fuck up. If they fuck up, it's a big fuck up. And they can't. Their 10-year plan is based on them succeeding. If they fail, it's a big failure. So I don't even know what the ramifications are. So they can't fuck up. That's basically, they better not. And something tells me, look, Peter Safran, I think what they're going to do is they're, like everybody in Hollywood, they're going to mitigate their risk. They're not going to come out and spend $200 million on a Superman movie. And I think what James Gunn was saying, the movie that he's writing, he knows that if you concentrate, if you get the right balance between fun and action, and you look, their Superman movie, you got to come out of that Superman movie. Look, you got to have a smile on your face. You can't come out of that Superman movie with Superman having killed somebody, with Metropolis coming down around the citizens of Metropolis. The movie has to leave you with a smile on your face. It's got to make you feel like Top Gun Maverick or Back to the Future, or take your pick of movies that leave a smile on your face when you come out. That's what they have to do. They've got to give you a serious tone that is also wildly entertaining. Now, I only say Top Gun Maverick because it made almost $1.5 billion, but everyone knows what I mean. That movie's just fucking fun. It's fun. You know, if it's not your thing, like Chris Card, she's jet fighters and all that. But for the most part, it worked for a lot of people because that movie put a smile on your face. Fuck yeah, it's kick-ass. That's what people want. They want to feel that. And like, I think about when I say like Back to the Future had real peril, but Back to the Future was a fun movie. Now, when I say if you could make a Superman movie like Back to the Future, I do not mean having time travel. I do not mean going back to the 50s. What I'm talking about is tone. The tone of Back to the Future is fun. It's fun and it's wildly entertaining all the way through. I don't mean anything to do with plot or characters or anything, but the tone of Back to the Future. If you watch that film, the opening credits over a bunch of clocks, you have no idea what's going on. Camera's panning down. You see Einstein's, there's a mechanical thing opening his food and dumping it out. Clearly, it's been dumped out like 6 times. There's a pile of dog food. Comes over. Door opens. Marty McFly walks in, is not paying attention to any of this. He hooks up his guitar to a giant speaker. It blows him through the room. And immediately, it was fun, entertaining, intriguing. You meet Marty McFly. It is wildly entertaining from the first minute to the end of the movie. It's so much fun. If you make a Superman movie with the tone of something like Back to the Future, and imagine Top Gun Maverick and Back to the Future combined. Not the plot, not the characters, but the tone of each of those movies. If you could do that in a Superman movie, you'll make $2 billion. That's what you got to have. Where the characters are the character of Clark Kent is just as much fun to hang out with as Superman is. You make that movie, you make all the money. However, that's not easy to do. So I don't begrudge them. I wish them luck. I really do. So anyway, Watchtower01 says, "Hey Rob, big fan. What are your thoughts on Lois knowing Superman's identity in the new DC universe? One thing I didn't like about the current Superman. I think I can say that there's no way in hell that Lois is going to know Superman's identity in the first Superman movie. I think her discovering, maybe they're going to do a 3-part, they're going to come up with a Superman trilogy. See, the one thing about when Lois knows Superman's identity, the thing that makes Superman vulnerable, and we see this in Superman and Lois, is when Superman has people that he loves, those people become a liability. That's a vulnerability that Superman has, and it's not always a great thing, but you build up to that. And I think what James Gunn, I love the idea, a newly minted, imagine you've got Superman coming to Metropolis after we know his origin. He went to the Fortress of Solitude, whatever that is. His arrival in the big city now from Smallville, showing up and becoming, the thought of it all, of a newly minted, some really great actor in the role, say 25 years old, and he comes to the big city. There's so much possibility for entertainment there if it's done well. And I think James Gunn's sensibility, because he's writing it after all, will bring us something that's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't think Lois is not going to know who he is, because there's too much fun in her not knowing and him trying to keep his identity secret from her. That's part of the fun. Kylo Ken says, "I know it'd be kind of weird, but what about Liam Hemsworth as Superman?" I think there's gonna be look. It is not easy. When I was working on Superman Returns, I saw all of the people that auditioned for Superman, including people like Henry Cavill. It's tough. It's hard to nail that. It depends. It's going to be a search. They're going to have to find somebody. Liam Hemsworth, if he's good enough in the role, if he could play that part, believe me, James Gunn is not going to, whoever they cast as Superman is going to be the linchpin of that entire new universe. It's going to be, I think they're going to find somebody like Christopher Reeve, who's a relative unknown. I think that's what they'll end up going with. But, I wouldn't say no. Binary Sunset Media, how's it going, man? What of Lazarus? Great commentary, Rob. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was good to see you the other night on the show. Sam Uri says, are we in the worst era of U.S. cinema? No more ideas. Well, I think the problem with now is studio filmmaking. We're certainly not in a great era of studio filmmaking because movies have gotten so expensive. Studios don't even know how to make $65 million movies anymore. You know, they can't even adapt Tom Clancy novels. I mean, I think about the late 80s to early 90s, and I think about the movies that we all went and saw that were hits, like The Hunt for Red October. John McTiernan, Predator, Die Hard, and Hunt for Red October. Fatal Attraction. You know, now they'll turn those into shows. I think it's the studios have become in the business of making worldwide entertainments for the masses. So the spectacle of it, the movies, they're interested in making movies, but we're getting very little cinema. And it's, you know what I mean? I mean, cinema being a highbrow, highfalutin storytelling way of telling stories, whereas movies are like, let's have a good time there. More theme parks. So I think, unfortunately, I'd like to say we're in the post-cinema age. But yeah, I think studio filmmaking is not great. It's not great. But thankfully, we still have people like the Daniels making everything everywhere all at once. There's still a lot of great stuff that's out there getting made. It's just not being made at the studio level, which is sort of unfortunate. And I think that might change. We'll see. Horror is kind of leading the way. You see Paramount can release a Smile and make $200 million. That's good business. But I think you're right, Sam. It's not that there aren't good ideas. There's a lot of ideas. It's just studios won't bank on them, which is too bad. Leonardo Gullian says, this is what happens when you don't release the No Kid Black Adam cut. Yeah, I mean, that was just not good. Not good. And I understand what they were going for, but it wasn't good. McReady's Computer sends in a tip, by the way, that's very funny because everyone knows that McReady's Computer is a cheating bitch. McReady's Computer says, I'm with you, Rob, and I'm excited for the DC universe to take this new direction. Just bummed about Cavill's exit as the last son of Krypton. Honestly, I'm most excited for Keaton's return in The Flash and seeing Ford as Indy again next year. 80s kid here. McReady's Computer. That's why your name is McReady's Computer, because McReady's Computer, by the way, turned 40 back in June. Same day that Blade Runner turned 40. So I'm a child of the 70s and 80s as well. And look, that was a great time. There was a lot of great, I know Quentin Tarantino talks about how the 80s were not a great time for cinema, but there was a lot of great entertaining genre cinema in the 80s. Less character-based stuff, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun back then. So we'll see. But I really do want to see Michael Keaton and Harrison Ford. Look, I hope that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is great. I want it to be great. I love James Mangold as a filmmaker. I can't imagine a world. I'm never going to live in a world where I don't want an indie movie to be great. Why wouldn't you want that? I mean, I hope it's great. I think again, it is frustrating to see filmmakers that have only delivered us joy, whether it's James Cameron. I mean, James Cameron is not some studio shill. You might not like the direction he's taking, but he's putting his money and his beliefs where his mouth is, and he's betting his entire career on Avatar: Way of Water and more Avatar movies. And I'm an Avatar fan. I can't wait till tomorrow night and see this movie. I'm really excited. So I don't understand why we weren't like, it's so hard to make movies anyway. I want every filmmaker to make great movies, and especially when they're making science fiction, fantasy, and horror films, or they're working in my favorite genre of choice or whatever. I always want them to be great. I want everything to be great. I never go into something going, no, that's going to suck. I hate it when things suck. It pisses me off. I'm like, why did you, I know Tango Shalom is a tiny, tiny little movie, but we tried to make it, when I was given that movie, it had a lot of problems. And we made it suck we took all the suck out of it that we could. A lot of people, it's not their cup of tea. It's corny, acting, whatever. But we made that movie, I can honestly say, that Tango Shalom is the best version of that movie that there ever could be. For the amount of money it cost, which was very little, but we did our best. And I hate it. I hate it when movies aren't great. I want all movies to be great. Cash says Jason Bateman is Superman. I think he's too old. I think they really need to, this new DC. I don't think we need I don't want a bunch of CW teens running around in these movies, but I think we need to get people that look the part. We need great actors that are interesting actors that are going to be able to grow into these roles. I mean, I could see somebody like, I know this sounds a little crazy because she's already in Spider-Man, but, you know, I could see somebody like a Zendaya. I mean, if you've seen Euphoria, Zendaya's a great actress. I could see someone like a Zendaya playing Wonder Woman. I know people, and I'm not saying she necessarily should, but I think she's a great actress, and I think she could give us an interesting take on that character. I'm not saying that they should cast Zendaya as Wonder Woman, but what I'm saying is they need to give us a bunch of great actors that are going to inhabit these characters for a decade. That's what they're planning on doing. I mean, they could take it out more than that, but they want them to do single movies, and then they're going to do crossover films. They want to do what Marvel has done, and they want to do it well. And I think they're going to have to cast actors that can grow into these roles, and we can see them kind of like what the MCU did with these characters. They were playing these roles for 10 years. That's what they're going to want, and more. Corey Theobald says, man, I love listening to you, Robert. I feel like I'm chatting with a buddy over dinner or something. You do a great job, and I thank you. Well, Corey, that's very nice of you to say. There's no higher praise than that coming from the audience. I thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. I very much appreciate that. Look, I have to say, I'm a lifer when it comes to fandom. I mean, I am total. This is a lifelong avocation for me. I've wanted nothing more than to work in the entertainment business, and I've had a pretty good, I mean, I haven't had massive commercial success, but as a fan working on professional things, I've worked on so many things that I was very happy to work on. And I've had a really fun time in the business, which is great. And if I'm just relegated to making an independent movie every couple of years or something, hey, so be it. The next film I have coming out that I worked on is something called The White Devils, which you will hear about soon. Floating Kites says, has the end of a movie ever ruined the entire thing for you? I saw Superman 78 for the first time, and it nearly joined my top 10 comic book movie till the time travel finale. I can see that. I totally understand that. Because especially now it seems like a cheat. But back in 1978, when it first came out, I was there opening weekend. It was mind-blowing. And first of all, let's be clear. Superman does not spin the world backwards. That is just a visual representation of his time travel. He's traveling through time. He's going back through time. The world is not spinning backwards. That's always bothered me. That's what people said. And I totally get where you're coming from. The time travel ending now seems like a cheat, a bit of a cheat. But if you go in and research what happened with Superman and Superman 2, that ending was actually going to be the ending of if memory serves, of Superman 2. But it's, you know, it maybe doesn't work now. But back then it really worked because time travel was not the trope it is now. And but I wouldn't say that ending for me it'll never ruin it, because that's how it was when I first saw it, and the world was different. There was so many movies that hadn't been made yet. But I can understand where it comes for you, how you feel that way. And has the end of a movie ever ruined the whole movie for me? There's been a few. I mean, I can't really come up with one right now. I'll have to think about that. But I know that there's movies where I thought they went off the rails at the end, and they really bummed me out. I thought Don't Worry, Darling. What a disappointing ending that movie had. Despite all the press, if you go back and you watch that movie, I think Olivia Wilde is going to be a great director someday. I loved Booksmart. I thought the end of Don't Worry, Darling was a total cheat, and I hated that ending. I was like, wait, why'd you do that? The original script had a much better ending. Craig Nelson sends in a super chat. Thanks, but just some support. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate that. Friend Jaimin D. Jaimin D says, hello, Rob. And thank you for that $20 super chat. Jaimin D says, hello, Rob. In these dark times where it seems Marvel and DC fans seem unhappy, I'm coming to you with hopefully a movie suggestion that will cheer them up. Captain Kidd with the charismatic Randolph Scott and the Charles Lawton. Jaimin, that was a great idea. Okay, what Jaimin is suggesting, a classic, a bit of a slice of great swashbuckling action cinema from the days of yore, the heady days of classic Hollywood. Captain Kidd and Randolph Scott and Charles Lawton. Come on, two of the great actors. Not for everybody, I know, but Jaimin's right. If you want to see something, Captain, that's got to be 70 years old. See, now I want to know. Let's see how old it is. Captain Kidd, Randolph Scott, John Carradine's in it too. 1945. 1945. Everybody, you should watch that movie because Jaimin's right. Man, I haven't seen it in a while. Now I'm going to have to go get it. Binary Sunset Media says, Rob, I know I'm late to the game, but I finally finished Andor and I absolutely loved it. The prison arc was amazing, and I would love this if it had nothing to do with Star Wars. What do you think will happen in season 2? I'm a huge fan of Andor, and I've talked to a lot of people. I was actually talking to my good buddy Michael Davis, who directed the movie Shoot 'Em Up. If you haven't seen Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen and Monica Bellucci and Paul Giamatti, check it out. And by the way, if you get the Blu-ray, I did the special features on that movie. I mean, Andor, I really loved Andor, but in the next season, all the different arcs are going to be a year, so they're going to count down 4 years up to Rogue One. I would imagine we're going to see a series of fractious events between rival rebel factions, a bunch of people that probably don't like each other much. And at the same time, we're going to see Mon Mothma's life implode, and she's going to have to go on the run, go underground, lead the rebellion. Life's going to turn to shit, and at the same time, the rebellion is going to be forged through fits and starts. People are going to, it's not going to be easy for our friends in the rebellion. Not going to be easy at all. But I think that's what we're going to get. And I'm there for it. I can't wait. Honestly, I cannot wait. So I think it's going to be great. Not Fake Maine says, sad about the news, but a lot of fans are delusional. The DC EU failed. Not enough dollars. So I've got to be excited about something. I love DC. Always have. Always will. I can't wait to see the main man Lobo. You know what? If after Aquaman's over, if they want to make Jason Momoa Lobo, that's a great idea. I was saying today that John Cena and Jason Momoa are doing a movie together. It's Warner Brothers. I'd love to see them remake Tango and Cash. John Cena's the Rocky character. He's, I think he's Tango. No, he's Cat. I forget which one's which. But Jason Momoa is Kurt Russell. I could totally see that. I think that'd be great. I'd love to see that. But I'd love to see him as Lobo too. I love Lobo. And I could see James Gunn directing a Lobo movie. I don't know if he will, but I could see him doing it. I'd love to see that. Sam Shigart says, will we get a Superman set in a metropolis that neighbors Reeves Gotham? Gunn and Reeves seem friendly on Twitter right now, letting the two grow separately before meeting. God, I hope not. I hated that. So here's the thing. I always thought of Batman with its rogues gallery was Chicago. I know people think it's New York City too, but I always saw Gotham as being more Chicago because of like Al Capone and those mobs, and then Metropolis was more New York. And the idea that they're close together, I hate that. I hated that because one of the things I really, 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 really hated about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice was, why has Superman just not flown over to Gotham and checked? He could be there in the blink of an eye and looked into what Batman was doing and found him. I mean, and here's the thing. I really love scenes in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I love when Superman, when Clark and Bruce meet. And I love when Bruce meets Gal Gadot. I love all that. Like, I think that Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, if they had gotten rid of Doomsday, you know, and it was more of a battle of methodology. Like, you know, Batman was his methods are getting increasingly more ruthless, and they kept it more on the human tip. I really thought that the whole Doomsday thing and the death of Superman interfered with what could have been a really interesting movie. I mean, I get why they did it, because they needed it to be epic. You had to have Wonder Woman there as well. But wouldn't it have been interesting that, like, the fact that Wonder Woman is not revealed, that Superman and Batman don't know who Wonder Woman is or anything? I thought she was with you. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but there's a lot of good scenes in there that I wish the movie was better. But I hated the fact that Gotham and Metropolis were across the bay from each other. Why isn't Superman, he could go over there, find Bruce, and take care of business in one night. Why isn't he doing that? Why is it, oh, yeah, I don't know who you are. Tapman12 says, hey, Rob, have you seen The Fableman's Thoughts? I have. I've seen The Fablemans. And here's the thing. I'm of two minds about The Fablemans. I mean, I loved seeing Spielberg's early life and film and all those things. And then his parents, and I just thought that it was a movie that I wanted to feel filled with more wonder than I was filled up with. And I sort of totally already kind of understood all that about Spielberg, just because, you know, I've been living with the guy for 45 years now, watching his movies. I mean, I saw Jaws in the theater 47 years ago. First run. So I've been watching Spielberg movies most of my life, and I'm a huge Spielberg fan. And I just think that the movie, you know, there's other things like Cinema Paradiso. To me, Cinema Paradiso is almost a better version of The Fablemans. I understand it was more specific to Spielberg. I liked all the performances and the way it was directed. The script, I didn't dig it as much as I wanted to. I really liked the movie a lot, and it was great to get that insight into Spielberg, but to be honest, I really would have loved to have seen him tackle something else. You know, I'm still holding out hope he'll direct a Fantastic Four movie. I don't know if he will, but does that make sense? I mean, to me, if you guys haven't seen Cinema Paradiso, what a wonderful film. I have it on 4K. You cannot borrow my disc. But it's an amazing movie, and it touches on the same... I mean, it's different, but still, if you haven't seen Cinema Paradiso, I know it's in a different language. You got to watch it subtitled. Watch it, because it is a beautiful film, and it's truly about the love and power of cinema. BK Dan says, why give them power over you? You have no power over me. Labyrinth. That should be your answer. Every time I come to you. Yeah, I agree. Nobody has power over you, really. I mean, you always have the opportunity to make something on your own. And here's another thing. Criticism is not gatekeeping. I've always believed that whatever your beliefs are, whether they're religious beliefs, whether they're artistic beliefs, your beliefs should be able to withhold or they should be able to hold up against scrutiny. So when somebody questions your beliefs or questions your taste, you should be able to articulate why it is that you like what you like or believe what you believe without getting offended. You should be able to always support your own beliefs with a good, cogent argument. And if you don't have a good, cogent argument, think about it and come up with one, because it's never a bad thing to delve more deeply into what the beliefs that you hold dear. I'm not saying you should change those beliefs, but really understand why you believe what you believe. And always look at an opportunity when someone questions your beliefs as an opportunity to defend what you believe. And don't get mad. Just defend your beliefs. And if somebody disagrees with you, you don't have to get angry with them. But knowing why you think what you think and why you believe what you believe, and be able to articulate that and defend those beliefs, there is a power in that nobody can take away from you. And I honestly believe that. Ron C says, hello, Rob. Thank you. I've been waiting for someone to talk about how the film industry works. Not many channels really talk about how it functions. Business is business. Ron C, I appreciate that you think that way. I mean, I have worked in the film business since 1989 professionally. To be honest, I worked on my first film. I was the art department assistant on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I went on and worked on films like Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness. I worked on the Swamp Thing television series. I worked on Sleepwalkers. I worked on Cast a Deadly Spell, working in makeup effects. I was a PA mostly. I had a job at Warner Brothers. I had an office in the executive wing of the studio. I worked for Bill Young. He was the senior vice president of physical production. And our department oversaw the actual physical production of all the movies that were made at Warner Brothers. We weren't in charge of what movies got made, but once those executives decided which movies were made, then our department was in charge of making sure they got made at the studio level. It was incredible. It was the greatest job I ever had. And for those of you who want to date me, Bob Daly and Terry Semmel ran the studio when I was there. Mark Canton, Bruce Berman, Alan Stewart, Lisa Henson, Bob Brassel, Tom LaSalle, Courtney Valenti was there. Lorenzo de Bonaventura came on there when I was there. So that was the era, and it was incredible. And then I left and worked at Silver Pictures for a while, and then I worked as the producer's assistant on Free Willy. So I was on the Warner lot for a number of years. That's how I began my career. And then I kind of went off in the low-budget arena and worked for Charlie Band. The first movie I ever edited was the movie Arcade. And then through the 90s, I started editing low-budget movies nobody's ever heard of. So I've been working for a long time in the business. Tango Shalom is the latest thing that I have that I produced and edited, and I also post-supervised and I designed the VFX on that film. And now I'm working on White Devils, and I'm hoping to get back into directing again. I haven't directed in 25 years. I made one movie 25 years ago. I have another movie that I'm just finishing up the script for now, and I've got another movie right after that I hope to direct again this year, and maybe my film Free Enterprise, I'll get that out as well. So I appreciate that. I try and bring an interesting perspective. I'll tell you what the biggest weakness that I've had my entire career is I'm too much of a fanboy. I've been lucky in that the DVD arena, I made my movie that made no money, produced the specials, and then I left, so I'm only the associate producer. But and then the DVD world started, and I got to travel around the world. You know, I worked on Lord of the Rings and X-Men and Narnia and Superman Returns, and it was great. I was traveling around the world on the studio's dime, talking to people that made the biggest movies in the world. It was a great job. It was like I went back to grad school and learned more about how, if somebody said to me, Rob, could you direct a $200 million movie? I would say, yes, I could. But that was only because I was covering $200 million movies for 10 years, where I was literally embedded on those productions, asking people questions on set for a year at a time, whether it was Narnia, whether it was incredible. I've had a great time. So I do try and bring some kind of authenticity to my industry analysis. But I'm still a fanboy at heart, which has always been my Achilles heel, I think. Parth Trivedi is a member of the channel. Well, thank you for being a member of the channel, Parth. Appreciate that. Rampage Predacon became a member, has been a member for a month. Remember, this Saturday, we will be having a member chat. And the member chats, I always say they're going to be short. They're always like 4 or 5 hours, where we just shoot the shit for 4 or 5 hours. They usually start at 11 on Saturday, but I think I'm going to jump in. I might not start it until 12 because I might be on Latino Slant on Paulie's channel at 11. I'm not sure. Big Push Productions. This is a good question. What should James Gunn do about Batman as a character for his universe? New casting, old Batman actor, no Batman. Matt Reeves' universe isn't included. New Batman. They need to look. What I would do is moving forward, if they're going to do the DC EU, I would go for all of them. So I would literally, if you're going to do this, and again, I don't know how they're going to do it. I would cast I'd start with the Justice League. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Hawkman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Black Canary, Martian Manhunter. Cast them all. And figure out, I mean, I don't know where you're going to go with this, but I would do that. I would look to that and then go from there because, I mean, I think that's the way to go. And that's tall order, man. I don't know if they're going to do that, but Terev says, could Blue Beetle be worked into Gunn's reboot? I love Justice League International, the comedic version that Keith Giffen, Jan DeMatteis, and Kevin Maguire did, the funny Justice League. I love that. And Blue Beetle and Booster Gold's relationship within that comic was great. And I'm a huge fan. You know, Ted Kord, I know they're going to go the different route. They got the Blue Beetle movie coming out, but I'd love to see. They could go with whatever version of that character. But I think they absolutely should work Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. I mean, Booster Gold could be a really interesting character as well. So yeah, I'm down. I'd love to see that. Let's see. Wow, I just jumped forward. Oh. Thomas Logan says, Rob, I get that you're approaching this from a business standpoint, but if the choice is Cavill back as Superman versus Black Superman or Gunn's young Superman, the fandom and the general audience would choose Cavill in a heartbeat. Thomas, I gotta disagree with you respectfully. The audience doesn't care. If you gave you have to understand, whoever plays, if they come out with a new Superman movie, people are going to see Superman. And if it's a new actor and they're going to promote this new actor, just like they accepted Christian Bale, they accepted Ben Affleck, and they accepted Robert Pattinson. And people bitch and moan and complain, but they go and see those characters. And this is what even Anthony Mackie and what Quentin Tarantino was saying, it's the characters, not the actors. I would say that is not entirely true. You have to have both. You have to have a synergy between the actor that's portraying the character and the character themselves. You have to get the actor to best inhabit the character, and then they have to do a great job. Just like I really appreciated Robert Pattinson's rendition of Batman. I loved Ben Affleck as Batman. I loved Ben Affleck as Bruce fucking Wayne. He might be my favorite Bruce Wayne of all because he was a boss as Bruce Wayne. When you first meet Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, that whole opening scene during the Battle of Metropolis where he's going into the fight, it's great. His three-piece suit, he's awesome. Whoever they cast as Superman, the audience will go, assuming the movie's good, will go with that character. They'll go with that character. Just like, look, if they're going to do a Black Superman story, and that's canonical to the DC universe, if you cast a Michael B. Jordan, first of all, that guy is so physically, he's an incredible physical specimen. He's a very handsome guy. And I've been a fan of Michael B. Jordan's all the way back to The Wire, even though he died, and Friday Night Lights. I think he's an incredible performer. I think he's an electrifying presence. It wouldn't bother me if they make him Black Superman. The problem is, I don't want to call him Black Superman. I wish whoever plays Superman. The problem is when we are going to the traditional Superman character. Can he be black? Sure, but we're all going to call him Black Superman. I want to live in a world where we don't have to call him Black Superman. We can just call him Superman. But in the DC universe, that just like, look, to me, Spider-Man is Spider-Man, and Miles Morales, who's also Spider-Man, but is Miles Morales. And I don't have a problem with that. I'll buy the Hot Toys figures of both. And I did. I think that it doesn't really matter, but I think traditionally, I think DC needs to go back and give us those traditional characters. We need the traditional Trinity again, but we need them in a different kind. You know what's interesting? Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins, the first Wonder Woman movie, but remember, she didn't develop that movie. She came in and she was replaced a director. The first Wonder Woman movies, for as much as it took place during World War I and all that, it had that kind of joy that Cavill's Superman wasn't allowed to have. And it needed more of that. But I think it could work. I think, look, what's going to happen is I don't envy them, but they're going to find a new Superman that is going to inhabit the role, and people are going to want to. They're going to the same way that our new Spider-Man. Who doesn't love him? He's great as that character. Tom Holland inhabits Spider-Man, inhabits Peter Parker. They're going to find somebody like that. They're going to have that, whatever the Superman equivalent is of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And then you're going to have a classical story. Remember, James Gunn is a novelist and he's a screenwriter. He's going to deliver the goods. He's writing the script. I'm sure it'll be great. Mr. Hank Dunn says, I hope Ben will make his Batman movie with new Batman. Hank, me too. I mean, Ben Affleck directing that Batman script he was making with Deathstroke the Terminator. Bring that shit on. I mean, Slade Wilson versus Bruce Wayne, Batman versus the Terminator. Maybe that'll fit in on their plans. That's a Batman movie I want to see. That's the Batman movie they could make. With a little rejiggering, recasting a Batman, a younger Batman. Why not? I'm down with that idea. If the script's great. Mr. Graham 91 says, hard not to think Warner Brothers used Cavill for the announcement when they saw the box office tracking wasn't to their liking. Hoping he gets Bond. Wonder how this will affect Johnson's relationship with Warner Brothers. Well, look, here's the thing. Dwayne Johnson is very well liked. And I think that they'll probably keep everything cordial because remember, all these guys, they all like each other. Nobody hates anybody. And ultimately, here's the thing. The box office numbers don't lie. The fact is, Black Adam, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did everything he could to make that movie successful. He tub-thumped that movie around the world. Social media, he promoted the hell out of it. It was not his fault. The reason that movie, I think it was twofold. One, it's a character the general audience didn't even know. And two, the script did not, they got a generic superhero film. The only thing that was different is that Dwayne Johnson's character, Black Adam, had no problem killing. But it wasn't different enough. And, I also think the approach, here's if I had made Black Adam, I would have, it had this generic, who should have directed Black Adam? Ridley Scott. Not that Jaima is not, it's not that he's not a good director, but it had too much of a pulp feel to it. If I had made that Black Adam movie, I would have gone the Ridley Scott route and gone more Gladiator, made it much more realistic and gritty and less of a fantasy film. I would have made it, this sounds strange. I would have made it more like Gladiator. The tone of it. And again, I'm not talking, when I say these things, I'm not like saying, well, it's got to be, no, I'm just talking about the tone, the realistic tone of Gladiator. If Black Adam was less fantasy and more gritty real in terms of its tone and its presentation. It was too generic, cardboard, superhero, supervillain, and it was like, it felt, we'd seen it all. It didn't give the audience something new in terms of tone. It didn't give you it needed to give you a different feeling. At least that's, again, my opinion, perhaps incorrect, but, we should see. But again, unfortunately, if Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam made $800 million, they would make another Black Adam movie because that movie made money. And the thing is, they're never going to not follow up a big money-making movie without, Wonder Woman 84 killed that franchise. If Wonder Woman 84 made $1 billion, I know it's the pandemic, whatever reason, it killed the franchise. It wasn't a good movie. It didn't make any money. No one likes it. I like Gal Gadot, but you can't justify that film. When it comes right down to it, it's all about money. Now, here's the thing. There are movies, like if you look at Warner Brothers' recent past in the last 10 years, Pacific Rim. Fucking love Pacific Rim. Love Pacific Rim. Did not make a lot of money here, but it made a lot of money, relatively speaking. It was what we call on the bubble. It was kind of on the bubble, but it did well in Asia. And because it was much more of a Asian audiences, giant robots, giant monsters, the idea of kaiju, the monsters were actually called kaiju. And the kaiju films, which I love, very much an Asian creation. So no wonder Pacific Rim did great over there. But they made a second one. The second one sucked because you didn't have Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro's sensibility made Pacific Rim work, and I loved it. But that barely got a sequel. But in this day and age, Black Adam, too much money, not enough return. Michael Preston says, didn't James Gunn already make a Superman movie? It was called Brightburn. Do you think Gunn may continue the Brightburn series? I loved it. Probably not. Probably not. Brightburn is such a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is the evil Superman story you always wanted to see, but nobody was going to tell. I don't think they're going to continue that. I think James Gunn, he's probably locked up. He's going to be working exclusively for Warner Brothers. So, yeah. Ron C. says, by the way, Rob, I've been enjoying your Designing Hollywood show, especially with Anna Terrazas. I loved her, but she was great. I loved her. So Anna Terrazas, I do a Designing Hollywood podcast where I interview mostly costume designers, but we're going to start broadening out. Anna Terrazas did Bardo, Inarritu's Bardo, which starts Friday. And she also did Caron's Roma. So she was great. And she's a Mexican national. She grew up outside of Mexico City. And part of that, the talent between Chivo and the talent that's come out of Mexico, that triumvirate of Caron, Inarritu, and Guillermo del Toro, and all the people that are coming out of, Mexico, like I asked her, I go, what's in the water down there? With all these incredibly talented people that are just masters of their craft. And it's a great interview. I interviewed Deborah Scott, who was the costume designer of Avatar, but she also began on Back to the Future and E.T. So I interviewed her. That was a great interview. And and there's a lot more great interviews coming. So look out for that. The Deborah Scott Designing Hollywood will drop on Friday. So I appreciate that, Ron. You're the one watching those. No, I'm just kidding. David Gonzalez says, there are plenty of great movies coming out, but Top Gun Maverick for me felt like it was the last film to be a great American classic. Hey, I agree with you. Top Gun Maverick was classical Hollywood storytelling. And again, wildly entertaining, totally a satisfying film. Really, really great. Great stuff. And I agree. Rob's Stable of Bitches. You must follow me on Instagram. We've decided we dig the jacket daddy. Yeah, everyone loves this. People call this my Snake Plissken jacket. I got this jacket like 20 years ago. It's a Guess jacket. And it's like fake leather. It's like vinyl, but I love this coat. When I bought it, I didn't think it looked like Snake Plissken, but it kind of did, I guess, and people seem to like it. Sunny Squirtlord D. Sunny Squirtlord D sends in a tip and says, with the changes at Warner Brothers, do you think they will change the leadership at DC Comics? I haven't had a desire to pick up anything new, rather collecting old DC and old Marvel. Neither company has my attention comic-wise. What have you been reading? Sonny, I'm with you. The last time I was excited for new comics was Hickman's run on X-Men. House of X, Power of X, and I liked what they did. It was weird, but I've been reading X-Men for so long, I liked it a lot. I, again, go back and collect omnibuses. And a lot of the comic book runs, the more I can get rid of my comics, I actually did. I got rid of all my comics. I kept a few, but I gave most of my comics away. Like literally, like 20,000 comics. I just gave them away. I was sick of them. And I kept some that'll get slabbed and sell. But give me the omnibuses. I just got sick of my comics. I got sick of them. And you know what? To be fair, if I had more Silver Age stuff, and I didn't have comics that were worth a lot of money. I mean, I had some. I had lots of runs from the 80s and 90s and stuff, but I actually read comics. I didn't collect comics. I read them, and by reading them, I mean I read them and put them all away, and I read them for 30 years, and I went religiously every week to get comics, but I read the stories, but I didn't think of myself, like I didn't go back and like I'm going to go collect, I don't know, some run. Like I would have, the more I think about it, I should have collect like all of Neil Adams' Batman, or something like that. I never did that. I just collected what I read, and I didn't go back and like buy certain books. I mean, now I'm tempted to go back and I want to get slabbed books, like just because I like the covers. I want to get Moon Knight 1 through 30, the Bill Sienkiewicz run, and get all of them slabbed. Like if we can find 9.9s or whatever. I kind of want to do that and put them on the wall. And then I've got my omnibus when I want to read them. I have my Atari Force, my Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Atari Force. I'm going to get them all bound because no one gives a shit about those comics. So I'm just going to get them bound into a hardcover. It's going to be great. But yeah, I just don't collect any comics. I'm always reading old stuff. Murray Reich sends in a tip and says, what's the true definition of what's considered an IMAX screen size? Some theaters have it big and some smaller, and some that are LIMAX. By the way, all IMAX theaters in New York City are sold out for a week unless you look way up from row 1. Well, Murray, that's a good question. You know what? Let's find out. I want to find out. I mean, to me, IMAX screens were dedicated the big giant screens, and then the LIMAX screens were made smaller so they could put them in theaters, regular theaters. So let's see what they. Okay. IMAX is a proprietary system of high-resolution cameras, film formats, film projectors, and theaters known for having very tall screens with a tall aspect ratio, approximately either 1:43 to 1 or 1:90 to 1. And that's very interesting. And I'm looking at the Wikipedia. Anybody could do this now, but IMAX GT is the large format as it was originally conceived. It uses very large screens, 18 by 24 meters or 59 by 79 feet. So that was true IMAX. And unlike most conventional film projectors, the film runs horizontally so that the image width can be greater than the width of the film stock. It is called a 70-15 format. It is used exclusively in purpose-built theaters and dome theaters, and many installations limit themselves to a projection of high-quality short documentaries. Then later came the introduction of IMAX Digital 2K and IMAX with Laser 4K in 2008 and 2015. Still limited in respect to the 70 megapixels of equivalent resolution of the original 50 to 70 film. Both technologies are purely digital and suitable to retrofit existing theaters. So there you go. That is the original. The original was that's really interesting. 59 feet by 79 feet. And again, they've played around with that so they can put it in lesser theaters. But I like to see that original. I like that original aspect ratio of IMAX. And here in LA, the one, I wouldn't call it necessarily LIMAX, but I love, like, at Universal Studios, they've got a great IMAX screen. But the world-famous Grauman's Chinese Theater, that is now the TCL Chinese Theater, they actually turned it into an IMAX screen. And the theater's 100 years old, but they excavated down into the ground to give you more space. I love that theater. The problem is the actual seats are all broken and sprung, so they need to fix them. But that's kind of what your original screen is. So there you go. Everything else is terrible. Word Balloon. John Suntress of the Word Balloon podcast. If you don't listen to the Word Balloon podcast, you should seek it out. It's a great podcast. Rob, do you think there will be any DC TV or film in 2024? Full slate of both next year. Aren't the IPs too valuable to stay idle? Hope you're good. Let's podcast soon. Talking to the Benson sisters Friday about Star Trek Prodigy. Well, I know the Benson sisters. I love them. They're terrific. and say hello. Tell them I said hello. I'm sure one of them will roll her eyes, even though we love each other. Come on. I love them. They're the best. And don't forget to talk about their comics. I know you won't. But, yeah, Prodigy, that's great. I'd love to. But in terms of answering your question, I'm sure they're going to keep certain DC shows on if Doom Patrol does well. But they'll phase them out in favor of the new Matrix, to use a Star Trek II reference. So, yeah, I think that they will. Because like you said, they're not going to, there's going to be animation, there's going to be stuff that, but I do think that they're going to put the brakes on and start from scratch. I really believe that. Austin Hernandez says, forget who's going to be Superman. Who's going to be Jor-El? I nominate the Duke of Dope Discourse. Guaranteed $1 billion gross. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I could do a little Brando. I don't think that, I think they'd want to get somebody better. I mean, they've had Marlon Brando and Russell Crowe playing Jor-El on the big screen. That's pretty good. I don't know if I can follow in their footsteps. Ghost Rider says, James Gunn is an awesome guy. I work with him on a few projects. Very knowledgeable with the geekdom, especially of the comic book variety. Oh, no, James Gunn's one of us. He's as much of a geek as anybody. And that's why you got to support the man. I mean, he is a true dyed-in-the-wool. He's one of us through and through. He's terrific. So I'm a big. I think that we should all support him because I think what he's going to do is going to be great. It's going to be great. And I'm glad you think he's an awesome guy. He is. I work with him, and he was an awesome guy. And then we hung out a lot more socially in like the aughts, not so much in the last 15 years because he's been busy. Stephen Webster says obscure DCU characters intro through games. Oh, absolutely. I look, if anybody loves their obscure characters, it's James Gunn. I mean, who would have ever thought we would have Starro in live action? I still can't believe Starro's in the same movie with King Shark. Who would have thought that? Well, I know, James Gunn. That's who would have thought it. So yeah, I mean, I think they're actually going to do a lot of that. I think we're going to get great games, and they're going to have some synergy there, and that's going to be cool. Mr. Tickle Trunk has been a member of this channel for 25 months. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, and he sends me a heart. I appreciate that. So thanks. Junior Hulk says, hey, Rob, what do you think Kevin Feige would do if he had his hands on Universal's Dark Universe? Do you also think James Gunn will give us a new Batman? One, yes. I think he'll totally give us a new Batman. And two, I think Kevin Feige would do a great job with the Dark Universe as evidenced by the Werewolf by Night one-shot. I think they do a great job. It'd be awesome. Tom Jr. Jackson, our moderator, he coined the phrase, we're all goof people. Tom says, thanks for recommending My Fair Lady. I enjoyed it a lot. Beautiful film. I watched it the other night. My Fair Lady, Elizabeth and I were watching it. What a great movie. And if you haven't seen it, it was Best Picture in 1964. Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn. Not exactly the normal bill of fare around here, but what a great film. And by the way, shot in 70 millimeter, that disc, and Paramount put that disc out, is unbelievable. The quality of that My Fair Lady 4K disc is unbelievable. Good music, too. I'm glad you liked it, Tom. Blue and Gold Throg. The man Throg. The man who kept my ass clean during the pandemic. Thank you, Throg. Always good to see you. No, I don't mean he personally didn't, but he made it possible. We got, when you could not get paper to wipe your bum, Throg from the East Coast shipped it to us. I lived with a family of girls, saved our lives. Rob Carrot Top is the next Superman. James Gunn and Peter Safran told me. Well, he has the body to be Superman, I guess. That guy's jacked. Is the world ready for a ginger Superman? Who am I to say no? If the story's good. David Gonzalez says, okay, so I know it will never happen, but I just rewatched Dune. And after seeing how the Baron Harkonnen was portrayed, I would love to see Villeneuve do anything Darkseid and or Apocalypse. Oh, bro. Denis Villeneuve, if he should direct Superman. I mean, could be good. Although, I don't know if he's got the right sensibility for Superman. He's a little dark. but it would peak verisimilitude. I can't wait to see the new Dune. Ghost Rider says, Metropolis and Gotham are more like New York City and Jersey. They are. I'm just saying that the villain count, though, because they're both sprawling metropolises. So I don't like the fact that they were next to each other. I think they have to be separate, different cities. BK Dan says, James and Peter have to come out guns a-blazing. Peter Gunn, like the Peter Gunn theme. You're right. You're right. Yeah, I agree. Son of John says, Rob, what I want to see is a late 20s to early middle age, handsome, excellent actor to portray Soups. And what definitely needs to happen is 87% Rotten Tomatoes by critics and moviegoers and good marketing. Hey, I can't agree more. Look, I mean, you could go like that classical John Hamm route for Superman. He's too old now. But I agree with you. I think we need late 20s, early 30s, and somebody that we're going to watch grow over the course of 10 years into their mid-40s or whatever. I think it'd be great. I think it's definitely something that would be awesome. I think it'd be great. Let's see. Where are we now? Freddie Lane became a member. He's a new member of the channel. Freddie, thank you for becoming a member. And El Necron has been a member for 19 months. And thank you guys. Remember, this weekend, member chat, look for that. I'll put up a link on Friday. Adam Mooney says, Rob, can I send you a script? Laugh out loud. No, just kidding. Question, why did you revert the channel name back to the Burnettwork? I love the content and you on the John Campy show. You know why I did that? I'll tell you why. So here's the thing. People weren't really getting Post-Geek Singularity as a channel name, and so YouTube issued you recently it was at the Burnettwork, because that's how I signed up. So I wanted to revert back to that because the Burnettwork, my name, it's easier to understand, and because we have other shows like shows and Alex Montano and Roberto Suarez's Que Pasa, PGS. I always wanted to be a network anyway and have other creators come on and put their shows on the network. So because YouTube said they were going to give me or reissue this at the Burnettwork, I decided to go back there. So it's now the Burnettwork, home of the Post-Geek Singularity. But that's a good question. That's why I did that. Son of John says, in addition to an 87% Rotten Tomato score for the new DCEU, the plot and writing need to be relatable in a sci-fi way of allegory, somewhat romantic, and characters relatable with good editing and effects. Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. I mean, basically what you're saying is we need this to be great, grand fantasy filmmaking. And it has to be, like you said, it's got to be romantic in the sense that Superman is a romantic character. You know, it really is. And Superman is an inherently good character. The corrupt darkness in his soul is just not there. That's why it makes him Superman. And that's why when I say tone, you know, I think of movies like a Back to the Future or a Guardians of the Galaxy, where the tone, I call the tone, I guess you'd say buoyant would be a good word. That's what we want. So, yeah. I agree with you. Ghost Rider says, I've got to do a movie. If I got to do a movie in Gunn's DC universe, it would be either Nightwing, Green Arrow, or The Flash, not necessarily in that order. Hey, man, I'd love to, being from Seattle, I'd love to do a Green Arrow movie set in Seattle, like Mike Grell's run, and do the Longbow Hunters, which I always loved, because that would be dope. But we'll see. Akana Stone says, if they can work something out with Milestone, they could do Icon. Oh, man. Okay, so the Milestone universe was a sub-universe of DC that was created by black creators like the late, great Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cowan. It was awesome. And Icon was kind of their Superman. That's where Static came from as well. I agree with you, Akana, that I really like the Milestone universe a lot. I like those characters. I think Icon could be great. And, Static or Static Shock, great character. They've already done Static Shock really well. I'd love to see those characters come about. And, those are great characters created by, Dwayne McDuffie, one of the great writers at DC Animation. He was great. I actually got to know him a little bit because he married a friend of mine, Charlotte Fullerton. He was a tremendous loss. Charlotte's done a good job of keeping his legacy alive, though. I agree with you. I think the Milestone Universe characters would be great to put into the DC EU because those characters are really great. And I think we've already seen that Static could be a great character, already works. And Icon, first of all, I'd love to get a high-end action figure of Icon. That'd be great. I think it's a great idea. I'm with you. Samurai. Man, I love my Samurais. What movie news out now are you looking forward to? Well, I think, most of the stuff that's coming out. I know it's kind of a boring answer, but there's been so much great stuff. I'm really looking forward to, I got to say, one of the movies I'm most looking forward to is Michael Mann's Ferrari movie. I know we already had Ford v Ferrari, but Michael Mann's one of my favorite filmmakers. He made Heat, he made Thief, he made Last of the Mohicans, he made Ali, he made The Insider. I love Michael Mann. He's making a movie about Ferrari now, Enzo Ferrari. That's probably my most eagerly awaited movie. And then Killers of the Flower Moon, the new Martin Scorsese movie. I'm looking forward to that. And Oppenheimer, to be honest. Christopher Nolan, I'll watch anything he makes. So those are the ones I'm most looking forward to. So, yeah. Paul Mammer says, is DC missing the opportunity to end their universe? It's something that Marvel can't do. Imagine DC versus vampires or deceased and then start anew. I just don't think they'd have to bring all those characters back. It would be too... See, the thing is, there's not enough... Unfortunately, the DC EU as it exists right now is just not that... It's not as beloved. I think that the only equivalent of that is, even though we only got half the story, was Zack Snyder's Justice League. Unfortunately. So... RG2088 says, with Gunn set on a young Superman movie to start the new universe, they should phase out the old guard with one last farewell movie. After all, there can be many Earths. Could ease the disappointment. But the thing is, we're getting Shazam, we're getting Flash, we're getting a Blue Beetle movie, and we're getting Aquaman. So they're going to be deep into making whatever they're going to be making. And we're still going to get DC movies all through 2023. We got 4. So that's, I think people will, it'll be a bittersweet farewell, but it's still we're still getting them. They're just not going to make another one. Pasty Coppertop says, pumped for the French Three Musketeers movie in 2023. Man, I am with you. If you guys haven't seen the French, they've made 2 big Three Musketeers films in French. The trailers dropped. Eva Green's in them. They look great. Vincent Cassel is in. Oh, man. It looks awesome. Those are so cool. I don't know where those came from. I didn't know anything about them until I saw the trailer. How cool is that? Ditzy says, hi, Rob. When can we expect the first Gunn DC film? I would imagine 2024. 2020, end of 2024, beginning of 2025. But I would say the first one we're going to get is going to be Christmas of 2024. Maybe earlier, but Christmas of 2024. And it's probably going to be a Superman movie. That's what I would imagine. But don't necessarily quote me on that. Mexican Iron Man. Hello, Mike. And by the way, because of Mike, I actually have a Mexican Iron Man, a Hot Toy Mexican Iron Man that's coming out of the box. He's going on the shelf. You're going to see it over the holidays. I'm going to get this all in working order. Mexican Iron Man says, phenomenal perspective as always. I'm bummed to lose Cavill, but hopefully we'll all get something consistently and amazing from WB after decades of inconsistent studio management. Brother Mike, amen to that. And I think that's the most important thing. We want consistent storytelling so we can believe in it, like we could believe in the Marvel Cinematic Universe through phases 1, 2, and 3. So, Freeman Films says, in Multiplicity, the wife sleeps with all the hubby clones, not knowing they're not her hubby, and they let her. I still find it funny. Can we still laugh? Man, I don't know. I love Multiplicity. I haven't seen it in a while. Good call on that one. It's so much fun. Where has our sense of... Here's the thing. Humor is based on the fact that we as human beings understand that we're a goofy bunch. As Tom Jr. Jackson says, we're all goof people. We're goofy. And we should revel in our goofiness. I mean, yeah, we can be horrible, awful people. You know, we can be racists, misogynists, killers, fuckheads, whatever. But we're also great people too. And we have to learn to laugh at ourselves. I mean, if you don't understand that you're a goof person, and if you can't laugh at yourself, I don't understand. I mean, the whole point is we all should inherently understand that we are goofy, but that doesn't mean that's wrong. And a lot of people, you know, you need to laugh. You need to have enough of an ego to understand that to reflect back on yourself and to laugh at yourself is a great way to walk through life. You can still take yourself seriously, but also understand we're also inherently goofy. And I think we need to be, man, the self-importance people have these days, the narcissistic navel gazing that we're all doing. I mean, give me a break. I don't understand. But Multiplicity, yes, that's what I want to see. I want our civilization to find its sense of humor again. Because there's funny people in the world, and I think we're not being as funny as we should be. Blake says, I hope we can see a proper Teen Titans movie. Man, I would love that. I would love to go back to the Perez Wolfman run. I love that run. You know, I have to say I've been enjoying this new season of Titans only because I love Brother Blood, Mother Mayhem, and all that. But again, the Teen Titans should have that Back to the Future tone. This dark tone that infected all the DC universe doesn't make sense. This is going to seem weird, but Teen Titans should also have a little bit of Star Trek: The Next Generation in them. You know, where they should be not goofy, but again, buoyant. It's all about tone. Cameron Dane Scott says, hey, Rob, can you please reboot Agent Cody Banks for us? Oh, would I like to? It's a real legal mess. That is a story for another day. I could write a book on what happened getting the original Agent Cody Banks made. What a nightmare. Anonymous says, what time are the Seahawks losing on Sunday? Hey, they've been inconsistent. You know, they won, they lost, they won, they lost, you know. Who would have thought they've even got as far as they would have this season? I didn't think they would have. Let's hope that they'll win. Murray Reich says, unless I'm mistaken, why hasn't there been a straight R or P? Why hasn't there been straight R or PG-13 comedies in the last few years? We used to also get throwaway ones during the holidays. The only ones we get now are action, rom-com, and horror. Is it because of the culture we're living in? Yes. People, the comedies are essentially dead because everyone's terrified of offending somebody, which is so stupid. I mean, I think we should have clinics where people learn to be made fun of to their face and take it, because everybody is way takes themselves way too seriously. I mean, it's bizarre. It's really, we live in a strange time where there is not a lot of humor going on. And here's the thing, you can't take it so personally. Again, it's kind of like having the strength of your convictions. You should be able to defend what you believe against somebody's, whether it's criticism or somebody questioning you about your belief, and not get mad about it. You know, and I think that humor, to be, you need to be open to the fact that like self-deprecation and self-deprecating humor is I guess it's a skill we all have to like relearn. But come on, man, everybody is worthy of comedy at some point, and I think we need to remember that. Bwahahaha, Blue and Gold Throg says, hey, I tried being funny once. You're funny, though. Come on, Throg. You've always been funny. Kylo Ken says, did you check out the Disney Plus National Treasure show? Is that garbage fire, in my opinion? You know what? I'm not that interested in it. I'll try and check it out. I will try and check it out. Well, anyway, everybody, that brings me to the end of this show. Robservations episode number 822. I'm ending it. I should say like and subscribe. A lot of people here. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. It can always help those analytics. And I promise, I keep saying this, but I'm going to try and do a Robservations every day through the end of the year. And it should be fun because I have a lot to say. And then I'm going to be starting the 10 and 10. I'm going to do 10-minute videos where I take, in 10 minutes, I'm going to do lists of 10 things, like my 10 favorite season 1 Star Trek, the original series episodes, or my 10 favorite horror novels from the 80s, or my 10 favorite, it'll be 10 and 10, and I'm going to be making those. Those will be pre-recorded on the channel. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and I will, of course, be back on the John Campea Show tomorrow. And again, I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for moderating. I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel via Super Chats and tips. Thank you so much. And again, for you members, if you're a member of the channel, we will be having a membership call this weekend. And there will be on the John Campea channel the Designing Hollywood podcast interview with Deborah Scott, who she actually was the costume designer for Heat, Back to the Future, but also Titanic, Avatar, and Avatar: The Way of Water. She was great. So join us there. And now remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day. And thanks for being here.